This is part 4 of What If Naruto Lost His Sight. If you enjoyed this what if, then like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Also, I'll be starting shoutouts next video. Start chapter. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 8. Hope you enjoy. T1. Tilde 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 tilde. Exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. The next day. Kotetsu and Izumo were sitting at the table, Izumo trying to get his friend to play a card game to relieve his boredom when Kakashi appeared with Naruto on his back just like the day before. Except this time the boy was completely awake. "Hi Izumo, hi Kotetsu," Naruto waved at them happily. "Morning Naruto, Kakashi," Izumo said, trying to hide his confusion. Everything was taken care of, Kakashi informed them. "I'm going to drop him back at his apartment, then I'll be right over to the Hokage like I'm supposed to be. You wouldn't mind letting him know, would you? You were supposed to be there an hour ago. We got lost in the forest where we ran into a hermit who took us captive. It was all we could to sneak out of there this morning." Surprisingly, this excuse came from Naruto. "Good one," his sensei praised. "Thanks, came up with it on the way here. I figured we'd need one. The whole black cat routine is getting kinda old. Watch it, that's my best excuse. But it's boring, there's no creativity in it. Well, then how about you come up with my excuses from now on? You know what, I think I just might." Excuse me," Izumo said, succeeding in getting the pair's attention. "The Hokage's expecting you, Kakashi. My apologies. Do tell him I'll be there soon. And when he arrives 3 hours from now, his excuse'll be that he discovered Tora in an alleyway and was engaged in a game of cat and mouse, where he was unfortunately the mouse." "Thanks Naruto," he tipped an imaginary hat towards the guards in a sort of thanks. "Ya nay." There was a slight poof as the two left via Shunshin. The guards looked at each other for several seconds. So, who's going to explain all this to the third? They were silent for another moment before competing in a swift round of Jenkin-Pan, to which Izumo lost. "Damn," he whispered, as Kotetsu shunshined away as well. "I really wanted to get away from this desk. Dash. Well, here you are. Kakashi put me down so I was standing on the ground. I knew I was in my apartment just by the familiar smell, which was something along the lines of old wood and ramen. Sure you'll be alright alone here? It's my house, if I can't figure out how to get around here then I might as well just hand over my forehead protector." Naruto. "But seriously sensei, I'll be fine." I waved a hand dismissively as I headed in the direction of my kitchen. "I'm going to make some ramen." "Don't use the stove," I stopped and spun around to face him. "Why not? It would be best for everyone that you don't try to burn the apartment complex down." "And why do you think I'd do that?" "Simple, because you think you're heading to the kitchen when in fact you're 3 inches away from walking into your front door." I glared at him, raising a hand, determined to prove him wrong right up until I banged my knuckles into the door. Of course, my sensei just ignored me and continued to talk as if I didn't just injure myself. "So with that being said, no stove for you. But, my ramen. You have hot water, right?" I nodded. Though it wasn't always as hot as I would like, it's not worth complaining. "Use that." "But sensei," I began to complain before hearing a small poof. Sensei. I didn't get an answer so I could probably assume he left. "Bastard," I murmured as I turned the other way and headed back to the kitchen. On the way there, I ended up bumping into the table, tripping over a chair and hitting my hip on the countertop. Damn. This is going to be harder than I thought. It took me 5 minutes just to find the stuff I needed. Luckily I live off plastic wares so anything that fell didn't shatter on contact. After that, I waited for the food to be ready, but when, after 10 minutes, it was still crunchy, gave up. I was starving, and didn't want to wait any longer to eat, so I tossed the ramen towards the sink, celebrated briefly when I heard it actually go in. Then pulled out my book and headed towards Ichiraku's. Apparently, I knew my way to the ramen shop better than around my own house, because I had absolutely no trouble finding my way there. Though, I myself can't take much credit for that. After all, I was following the scent of ramen the whole time. I did have some trouble dodging people, but other than that I got there without much difficulty. Unfortunately, my impeccable luck didn't last that long. I had put my book on the table, and just as I went to sit down, someone yanked me away by the collar. "What are you doing out of bed, Uzumaki?" a man demanded. It took me a couple of seconds to recognize the voice as Ebisu. "Kakashi said you wouldn't be able to start training until tomorrow because you were recuperating. This doesn't look like resting to me." I got hungry. My answer sounded more like a question, which didn't convince him any, I'm sure. "Wait, you're training me?" "Yes." I heard some sort of clink coming from where his face would be. The only guess I had to that was either he was straightening his glasses or he was suddenly wearing a bunch of earrings. But since this is Ebisu we're talking about, I figured it was the first. "What, that jerk? I'm not any happier about this than you are. I would much rather be home reading my books." "You mean you're porn?" My answer was accompanied by a choking sound from where he was. It is not PP porn. Fine, smut, exotic literature. Whatever you pervs are calling the Ika Ika books now. You know what, brat, seeing as how you seem well enough to insult your new teacher, you're definitely well rested enough to begin training. I could almost hear his evil grin. "Alright, sounds fine to me. Right now. Dash. Hey, let go." Aim heard Naruto shout from her spot behind the table. "I can't leave yet, I have ramen to eat." "No, oh, hey Aim. Can you keep an eye on my book? I'll be back for it. Thanks." "No. I demand ramen." The short, blonde boy continued shouting until they were well out of sight and earshot. "Was that Naruto?" her father asked from the stove. "Yep." She picked up the book and put it behind the counter for him to get later. "He was dragged away again, wasn't he?" She hummed an affirmative, not bothering to truly answer. "How dare they do that? Without Naruto eating here we'll go broke." She nodded in agreement as she waited for their best customer to come back, because he always did. Dash. Jerk, I murmured as I sat on the ground, pouting angrily. I was sitting on a patch of grass surrounded by the smell of minerals, the sound of moving water and giggling. If I put all this together, I was pretty much sure I was in, or near, a bathhouse. I should have known the perv would bring me here. "What are we doing here, Ebisu Arrow?" "We're here for training, of course." "Are you sure it's not for peeking on girls?" "Of course not, I'd never do such a thing." His exclamation was louder than it needed to be, probably for the sake of the girls that were doing the giggling. Well, most of it anyways. Whatever. What's this training I'm supposed to be doing? "You're going to walk across that pond over there." I could tell he was pointing right at the damn thing, so I had to come up with a quick excuse. "Nope, it's against my religion." I winced at the absurdity that my mind came up with as a thump was heard that probably indicated some sort of face fall. This was going to be hard to explain, but it was a little late to change now. I had no other choice but to go with it. "What?" Ebisu exclaimed. "It's against my religion that a lowly human should be able to do what only the kamis can." "Naruto, Konoha don't have a religion." What do you call the will of fire then?" He was quiet for a moment before speaking again. "Alright, that's a religion. But we don't have anything else." "What about the flames of youth?" "Youth," a voice interrupted me from far away. "Or the fire extinguisher of fate." There was silence for a moment, but Ebisu and I waiting to hear a shout that never came. "The fire extinguisher of fate is not a religion," Ebisu said finally. "I was sure someone would have started worshipping it by now," I answered simply before coming up with another one. "Oh, what about the log?" "The log is not a religion either. Tell that to the clans, they worship the thing like it created ninjutsu right alongside the Sage of Six Paths. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Clucky versus the log was such a controversy. But how is water walking against any of those?" I froze, trying to convince my mind to come up with something quickly. "Well, it's not. My religion is completely different. And secret, very secret, so secret, in fact, that if I tell you any more about it I'd be thrown out of the order." "What?" They take their religion very seriously. If you're not allowed to walk on water, then why can you defy gravity and walk up a wall? He asked, stopping my far-fetched excuse in its tracks. I tried to stall, my idiot brain not coming up with anything to counter it. Thought so, now walk. He grabbed my coat and pulled me to my feet. But you haven't even told me how. It's just like tree climbing, but you have to keep changing the level of chakra because the water's moving. His explanation was rushed, as if he were hoping I have missed most of it. He pushed me forward, making me stumble, my left foot shoe splashing into the water a bit, which is what I was waiting for. Now I knew where the water I was supposed to be walking across was. Fine, but if I get kicked out of the order for this, I'm blaming you. I began focusing my chakra into my feet as I spoke, more to keep appearances than anything. Heck, I might even take pranking back up to get revenge for it. Not in an order. I ignored him and continued trying to focus. It was difficult, probably more than it should have been since my chakra was still feeling funny. It wasn't moving like it should be, which made my already shoddy chakra control even worse. So I wasn't very surprised when I stepped out towards the water and ended up sinking straight through the surface. What did surprise me was the fact that the pond was hotter than boiling water. Luckily I had taken a deep enough breath to make sure I would float to the surface despite my heavy clothing, and didn't really have to worry about drowning. Instead I was kicking myself in the butt about not bringing a package of ramen with me. It would have cooked up so nicely in this pond. Like I was being right now. As soon as my head broke the surface, I leapt backwards, towards where the land should be, screaming about it being hot. Stop being a wimp, it's not that bad, he said soon after I landed on the grass again. Not that bad, I could cook ramen with this water in about a minute. And it takes 3. I guess you'll have to learn quickly then. There was an audible smirk that I've been hearing a lot lately. It was really starting to annoy me. You're lucky I don't throw you in the bush over there with the other pervert. What? I heard 2 voices say in unison, one of which sounded similar to the giggling I heard earlier. Apparently my guessing is getting better. It was about then that I felt a swishing around my eyes, which could only mean that these old goggles weren't waterproof. So with a sigh I took them off to clean them. What were you doing in the bush? Ebisu asked the man as the rustle of leaves could be heard. Shush, you're going to scare them away. He hissed back. Scare what away? There was a moment of silence, a silence full of female giggling, before he answered his own question. How dare you peep on the WOM? Unfortunately, before he could finish his accusation, there was a thump and a quickly fading scream. Damn, man should just admit he's a pervert instead of trying to get the rest of us in trouble, the remaining man muttered. Obviously something happened to Ebisu that made him suddenly disappear. Did you just punt my sensei? I kept my head down as I tried to dry my goggles. Didn't you see the fantastic throw? There's hot water on my eyes, I muttered quickly. There was silence, so I explained. Apparently my goggles leak. Goggles? What goggles? I held them up before slipping them over my eyes. Are those Kakashi sensei's teammates? Yep, my sensei gave it to me after the preliminaries. Don't know why, it's not like I don't have a pair of my own. I straightened my goggles until they felt right. So you're Naruto, he stated, not a question in his voice. I looked up towards him questioningly. How do you know my name? I trained your sensei's sensei. But his sensei was the 4th. Wait, you trained the 4th? Yep, I bet you know who I am now. Not a clue. What? I'm Jiraiya the Toad Sage. You're still just an old pervert to me. I am not an old pervert. I'm a super pervert. My face connected with the floor from the sheer stupidity of the statement. Whatever. I climbed to my feet and dusted off my pants. I gotta get back to training. I paused for a moment before remembering that my sensei was gone. Great, how am I supposed to train if I don't have a sensei? I stood there for a moment, before I heard that old pervert try to sneak away, which gave me an idea. Hey, you can train me. No. Well, you're the reason I don't have a sensei, so you should replace him. What? I don't think so. You wanna bet? I'm not Tsunade, Kid. I stood there for a moment trying to figure out who this Tsunade was. I remembered a Sanin medic mentioned in my history class by that name, but I wasn't sure, so I asked. Isn't she one of the Sanin? Come on, you recognize her name but not mine. What is this world coming to? Well, she's a Sanin. So am I, he shouted in my face. I didn't respond as I thought back to academy class, trying to remember his name being mentioned. It took me a moment to remember a Jiraiya being mentioned shortly after the other two. Oh yeah, now I remember, I said, placing a fist in my palm. You're the one with the hair jutsus. That's all you remember about me. No wonder you're the dead last, he muttered to himself. I guess I'll have to introduce myself properly then. He cleared his throat. I heard him quickly go through several hand signs before hitting the ground as he shouted something about a summoning jutsu. After a large poof and the smell of strange smoke wafted away, he continued his introduction from several feet in the air. I am the writer of the best-selling novels in the world, the Toad Sage, master of seals, keeper of the Konoha information ring, and the man that makes every woman swoon. Jiraiya. Why are you on a frog? I was guessing again. After all, he did say it was a Toad Sage, so he could probably summon them. It's a toad, he shouted before another poof was heard, followed by the sound of someone crashing into the road. Whatever. I shook my head at his antics. Wait, did you say master of seals? Yes, I did. He climbed to his feet. An idea popped into my head regarding my messed up chakra that made me almost grin. How good. I am called a master. On a scale of academy student to the fourth. Little bit below my student, if I'm to be honest. Why, I started to believe that this might actually work. My seal got messed up in the second test, do you think you could fix it? What seal, kid? He asked after a slight hesitation. That pause told me he knew exactly what I meant. I've been lied to enough throughout my life to be able to tell as much. You know what seal? The one on my stomach that nobody's allowed to talk about. You gonna fix it or what? How about or what? Guess I'll have to find someone else. You'd cause quite the stir if you did that. Jiraiya's playful tone replaced with a more serious one. I pretended to stare at him stubbornly as he was, no doubt, staring back. It was quite hard to keep from laughing when I realized he was trying to have a staring contest with a blind kid. Fine, but not here. I jumped in victory. There's too many people around for something like this. End Chapter 8. Start Chapter 9. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 9. Wow. Almost forgot it's Monday. A bit busy today. Chaos, I tell you. Thanks for the reviews. The chapter's a bit short and not much happens, but here it is. Hope you enjoy. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. Fine, but not here. I jumped in victory. There's too many people around for something like this. His footsteps started moving away relatively quickly, leaving me to catch up with him on my own. It was difficult. After all, I was using only my hearing to figure out where he was headed. I stumbled quite a few times on sticks, but other than that I did pretty good. We were only walking for about 10 minutes when he announced we were here right before I could walk into him. This should do. Wherever we were, it still smelled like minerals but not as strong as before. That in the water sounded like it larger than the other. Off with the jacket. Excuse me. The seal's on your stomach, right? I nodded. I can't very well see through clothes now, can I? You'd enjoy that too much, I stated as I removed my jacket as well as my shirt. There, happy. I'd be happier if you were a chick, but then I would be a blubbering idiot, so it's probably for the best, he murmured, more to himself than me. Alright, focus your chakra into your stomach. Why? Stop asking so many questions, brat. Then start explaining stuff better. Fine, the chakra reveals your seal. Now focus your chakra so I can see what's wrong with it. Alright then, I started forming a seal and doing as he said. Damn Geki, he hummed in thought. Well, that's probably the problem right there. Someone put a secondary seal over the one you already had. It wouldn't be a 5-prong seal, would it? I asked, remembering what the snake Tem had called it in the forest. Actually it is. I guess you know who did it then. It was that weird, snake-loving girly man that gave Sasuke Tem the hickey. Damn, I should have guessed he was behind it, he said to himself before talking back to me. But there's no need to worry, it's an easy fix. How? Like this, was the only warning I got before he said, 5-prong seal, release. And slammed his palm in my stomach. I stumbled back in pain, though it wasn't as bad as when the seal was put on, but it still hurt. There, now try your water walking. Fine, but if it didn't work, you're next on my reinstated pranking list. I walked towards the sound of the water as he mumbled something about being a carbon copy of some Kushina person. I ignored him as my toes touched the water so I could start channeling my chakra into my feet. I could already feel a difference as it rushed to my feet in a controlled burst, unlike before. Feeling better about this, I stepped confidently towards the water. And it worked. I could feel my feet sink slightly into the water but stop before I even half my foot was wet, and long before I touched the sandy ground. It works, I yelled happily. I looked down at my feet for show, then ran out a little farther before turning around and heading back the way I came. Guess I won't have to put you on my list. Oh, thank Cammy. So what do I do now? Keep practicing. Why, I have it down just fine. The more you practice, the better your chakra search control gets, and trust me kid, you need it. I thought on this for a moment before nodding in agreement. So get started Gaki. Alright, but you're buying my ramen. Ebisu Arrow took me away from my lunch. But I'm training you, you should be buying me ramen in thanks. But a sensei should treat their student to food after a grueling day's work. He made an unbelieving huff before I continued, bringing up my best argument. After all, ramen is the best way of keeping me quiet. And why would I need to keep you quiet? Well, I'm pretty sure that the girls in the bathhouse would love to hear who was peeping on them a half hour ago. You wouldn't. I could almost feel the glare that was surely aimed at me. Try me. I matched his glare, starting another useless staring contest between us. I must have looked pretty convincing, because he gave up quite soon. Only this once, and you have to work hard or the deal's off. Hi, I focused my chakra and ran towards the water, only to fall right through the surface. This might be funnier than I thought. I heard him call once I broke the surface again. I glared at him before climbing out and trying it again. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. 5 hours later. I'm done, Jiraiya heard his new student say. He looked up from his writing to see the boy purposefully fall backwards into the sand. It was about 4 in the afternoon, so by his calculations, Naruto had been working for almost 5 hours now. Jiraiya thought it an impressive feat for a boy straight out of the hospital, especially since he wasn't looking too good when he was checked out. Yes, he was well aware of most of what happened. At least that he was hospitalized, thought to have tried to escape, then escorted by Kakashi to his teammate's hut with something akin to a headache. It seemed whatever young Rin did, it must have worked. After all, Naruto has been working hard for most of the day without end. Of course, he wasn't going to tell Naruto any of this, it would probably just inflate his ego, and that didn't need to be any bigger. Seriously, is that all you got? He taunted. The sun's still up. And I just got out of the hospital. The boy shouted, his breathing still labored from his training. So, that's no excuse. I'm tired. Fine, I guess considering everything you earned your dinner. Naruto threw his fist in the air in victory only to let it drop back to the ground with a quiet thump. Well, get up and we'll leave. Can't. Naruto nodded without lifting his head. Why can't you? Too tired. Then how do you expect to get there? Me carrying you into town? Jiraiya asked sarcastically. Yes. Seriously, the boy nodded again. What makes you think I'd even consider doing that? Women's bathhouse. You can't blackmail me twice with one thing. Says who? He was silent as he tried to come up with something legitimate the boy would believe. Damn brat, he murmured, coming up empty-handed as he picked the blonde up and put him, unceremoniously, onto his back. I don't want to hear a single complaint, got it? Hi, Naruto murmured, sounding as if he were about to fall asleep. Sid wasn't a surprise when after a minute or two he heard a light snoring coming from his back. Jiraiya shook his head at the boy's easy ability to trust almost anyone. It was kind of nice to see a ninja still so naive about the world, even though he knew that he'd have to teach him otherwise eventually. Jiraiya paused for a moment, trying to figure out exactly when he decided to continue training him. Maybe it was when he showed his determination to get stronger, or when he actually noticed his chakra was out of whack by himself. No, it was when he saw him. He looked too much like his old student, like his father, to be ignored. He didn't consciously think about the fact that Naruto's father would never be able to teach his son his best ninjutsu, the Rasengan, the Flying Thunder God technique, or even sealing in general. He just knew that he needed to teach him in his student's place. Guess I'm stuck with you for a bit, he mumbled to himself as the ramen stand came into view. Hey Gaki, we're here. Jiraiya spoke up, but didn't get a response from the boy. Hey, did you hear me back there? We're at the ramen stand. He mumbled something into his sensei's back but did nothing else, not even wake up. He must have been more tired than he let on, the adult said to himself. Guess I'll just take him home then. He was about to turn around when he remembered why he was taking the kid out for ramen to begin with. So with a sigh he went up to the stand and ordered 2 containers of beef ramen to go. After all, he couldn't have him going around telling everyone he's been spying on bathhouses. Although most people already knew this, sometimes letting someone think they have the upper hand opens up a whole different world of opportunities. After all, how could he train the boy if he didn't let him think it was his idea in the first place? Is it for Naruto? The pretty waitress asked after delivering the order to her father. How'd you guess? He teased. Call it a hunch, she said with a smile, glancing at unconscious blonde on his back. Oh, I almost forgot. Can you give him this when he wakes up? He forgot it when his other teacher dragged him away this morning. She had reached under the counter, placing a familiar book on the tabletop. He stared at it for a bit before picking up the book and putting it in his pocket. Don't worry, I will, he said with a smile. By now the ramen was already done and placed in travel containers. He quickly paid for the meal before grabbing his bag and heading towards Naruto's apartment. End Chapter 9. Start Chapter 10. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 10. So, as always, hope you enjoy. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. My eyes shot open as I heard my front door slammed shut. Thinking someone had broken in at some point, I grabbed a kunai from my pouch. As quietly as possible, I snuck towards the kitchen, only to trip on something and make a bunch of noise in the process. Naruto, whatever you're doing in there, you should probably clean up the floor first, I heard a voice call from the kitchen. Kakashi, I asked. Climbing to my feet, I headed towards the main room. What are you doing in my kitchen? Again. Dropping off food, that's not ramen. Not ramen, what's wrong with ramen? I demanded as I ran my hand along the hallway wall until I got into the main room. It's not very healthy, he answered from someplace near where the table should be. Your sensei wants you to start eating better so you won't be so exhausted like you were today. That was because of the fight and you know it, I said, pointing an accusing finger at him. A bit more to the left. I adjusted my finger accordingly. There you go. But I want my ramen. I pouted. There's no need for waterworks. Your new sensei left 2 bowls on the table for you, he said. I heard a paper bag rustle and the smell of Ichiraku's ramen filled the room. Yes, the blackmail still works. You blackmailed a Sanin? He asked, sounding mystified. I ignored him as I rushed over to the table, not caring that I bumped into it in my search for food. How am I not surprised? It didn't take me long to find the food or to start devouring it. In fact, I was halfway through the first bowl before one realized what Kakashi had said. Wait, you met my new sensei? I asked after swallowing a mouthful of ramen. Yep, He was dropping you off as I was bringing in the food. How you were able to talk him into training you, I'll never know. Blackmail. Again. It works, doesn't it? You really shouldn't be blackmailing people, Naruto. It doesn't really mesh too well with your Nindo. I don't do it all the time, I stated simply, continuing to eat as I spoke. It's really more of a last resort, well, more of a second to last resort. Before that's prank listing them and after that it's sexy jutsu. And how does that work for you? Surprisingly well actually, you'd be amazed how many perverts there are in Konoha. Instead of being called village hidden in the leaves, it should have been called village hiding all the perverts. Seriously, he had an unbelieving tone to his voice as he stopped putting away the food. Seriously, I'm actually surprised there hasn't been restraining orders from the other villages because of this. That's because they never let it affect their work, he answered. I paused in my eating to give him an unbelieving look before continuing on to the next bowl. Sure, whatever you say, sensei. Well, I'm starting to train Sasuke tomorrow, so I won't be able to check up on you for a while. Probably not, till the exam, Kaka-sensei warned, continuing to put away different cans and boxes. That's alright, I think I'm getting the hang of everything. Oh, and Jiraiya-san said for you to be at the lake by 8 a.m. tomorrow, and if you're not, he'll come here and drag you there. His words exactly. I guess it would be better if he came and got me, wouldn't it? Why? Before I could answer he tried to answer for me. It's because you're having trouble figuring out the time, isn't it? I stopped eating my ramen in my confusion. I guess you haven't discovered that yet, he muttered to himself, making me think. I mean, of course I'd know what time it is. It's not like I don't know how to read a clock, and if that fails I always can tell by where the sun is in the sky. My eyes went wide as I realized what he was talking about. Sensei. Yes. I can't tell time anymore. Glad to see you caught up. How can I be on time if I don't know the time? Just blame it on me. Everyone would believe you're picking up my tardy habit. But that's only if I'm late. I could be really early or come on the wrong day entirely. I threw my hands in the air in emphasis, sending one of my chopsticks into the wall behind me. This is a real crisis, sensei. Ma, calm down. It's not much of a crisis yet. You'll be busy with Jiraiya all month, who will probably pick you up every day, especially if you're late, he stated simply, still placing cans on the shelf. Anyways, I'll think of something, so don't worry. Alright, I answered before turning back to my ramen only to remember I didn't have my chopsticks. I thought for a moment only to shrug and picked up the bowl to slurp what was left. As I finished, Kakashi crumbled up what had to be a paper bag or two and tossed it into something, probably the trash. Well, there you go, he said once the noise had stopped. What did ya get me? Bunch of canned food and some random snacks. Sweet, I exclaimed. Arigato Kaka-sensei. You're welcome. We were quiet for a moment, which let my mind wander. Sensei, he hummed, letting me know he was listening. I was just wondering about something. Ever since the exam my other senses have been getting sharper. You don't happen to know why, do you? Quote. They're compensating for your lack of sight. But are they supposed to be doing that now? Shouldn't it be a bit slower? He was silent for a moment before speaking again. How sharp are your senses already? Well, I could follow the scent of ramen all the way to Ichiraku's, starting from only a block from my house. Were you able to smell that before? I don't think so. Have any of your other senses become as sharp? Well, in the fight, I could hear Kiba moving. You mean his footsteps? No, his clothes moving. And Sakura's been extremely loud lately. I could barely stand to be next to her in the prelims. Is that normal? Your senses should take longer to enhance than that, he said slowly. I asked Rin about it before we left. I'm not sure why they're already so acute only after a couple days. Unless what? Never mind, it's an absurd theory. Didn't make sense in the slightest. But, why look at the time? It's getting late, no need to get up, I'll let myself out. Ya nay, there was a poof indicating his departure. Asshole, I murmured as I continued to just sit at the table. After a couple seconds of breathing in the lingering ramen fumes, I began lamenting my lack of ramen in the house. Then I realized that if the need for ramen becomes too much, I could always make my new sensei buy it for me. With a yawn, I wondered what time it was. I probably should have asked Kakashi while he was here. Right now I didn't even know if the sun was still up or not. I shrugged, deciding not to bother with it. If I was tired, I was going to go to bed, time be damned. So, with a smirk I headed back to my room to sleep. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The next day, I woke up that morning to find the Arrow Sanin, which is what I decided to call him, dragging me out of bed as he complained about my lack of an alarm clock. Who needs an alarm clock? I mumbled tiredly. Obviously you, he shouted, making me wince slightly. It's 8:45 in the morning, you were supposed to be at the beach at 8. But seriously, I don't need an alarm clock with you around. And how do you think that? You're loud, annoying, and tell me the time. Alright, smartass, who woke you up for the academy? I highly doubt Iruka would stop his whole class just to drag you out of bed. My alarm clock. Where is it? He demanded again. How am I supposed to know? It was here when I left, I answered with a shrug. It was obviously frustrating him, but he deserved it if he was yelling at me before breakfast. Someone must have snatched it. And you didn't lock your door because... Oh yes, because locking the front door is ever so helpful in a village full of ninja, I stated sarcastically. All the thieves would come up to the door with all their tools, find the door locked and yell, "Damn, it's locked. Too bad I don't have a lock-picking jutsu. Or lockpicks, or a hairpin, then turn around and leave. Okay, but why an alarm clock? Look around and tell me if you see anything else of any value in here, because if you do, I'll surely return it to the thief that dropped it." Alright, I get it, the Sanin relented. Get dressed so we can leave. I am dressed. Those are the same clothes you wore yesterday. And how can you tell that? I asked Riley, since all my clothes were either those jumpsuits or PJs. They still smell of salt water. I sniffed my shirt curiously, only to wince away at the strange smell of salt and sweat. So get changed into something clean. This is the cleanest one I have. There was a stunned silence for several seconds before I spoke again. I didn't have time to do laundry before I left, so everything that was a little dirty at the start of the exam is now really dirty. You have to be kidding me. Nope. Fine, then the first order of business is for you to collect all those jumpsuits of yours while I try to figure out how to make doing laundry a training exercise, he half-ordered me. As his footsteps began to recede from the room and towards the kitchen. Can you make some breakfast while you're in there? I called, climbing up off the floor. Why should I? Because I work a lot better on a full stomach. I heard him muttering as he started going through my cupboards. While he was preoccupied in the other room, I found my basket and began searching for the 4 other jumpsuits I knew to be scattered across the floor. I had to sweep my hands across the ground, picking up whatever fabric I touched. I kept count of the different pieces I picked up, hoping I could find them all before he came back. When I was relatively positive I had everything, I picked up the basket and carried it down the hall, careful to drag the corner of my box across the wall so I knew where it was. Are you done yet? The Sanin shouted down the hall, which turned out to be right in front of me. I don't know, am I? I said sarcastically. Shut it, Gaki, he said. Before I could say anything in response, I was hit in the head by something. The object dropped into my basket as I stood there stunned. What was that for? That's your breakfast, be happy, he grumbled before a hand was placed on my shoulder. We're running late, so I'm just going to Shinshunas there. Okay. There was a swoosh and my feet found themselves buried in the sand. I put down my clothes as he began explaining my laundry-based chakra exercise. Apparently I was to stand on the water while I scrubbed my clothes against a rock, if I understood him correctly. Wouldn't it be easier to put it into the washer? I asked after I finished whatever it was that I ate. Couldn't you have done that last week? I was busy, I complained, but he didn't say anything back. I figured he was ignoring me, so no matter what I said, it wouldn't change his mind. So with a sigh, I got to work. It was pretty difficult having to stay balanced on the water while being distracted with figuring out how to clean my clothes. It took me until a little after noon before all my clothes were drying on the rocks, including most what I was wearing. When we sat down for lunch, I was wearing my boxers and pants, which were both soaked from falling in the water so often. That took longer than expected, Jiraiya said. It wouldn't have if you put them in the washer, I shot back, flopping into the sand near where he's been sitting the whole time. I was pretty sure he was facing towards me, but just to cover my tracks I laid down pretending to stare at the sky. Oh well, it's time for lunch anyways, he said over the rustle of plastic. Sandwich. Yes, I'm starving. All right, hold your horses, he stated as he started making the sandwiches. There was silence for a bit before shouting, catch. Knowing I couldn't catch it, I didn't even bother to try. Instead I waited for it to thunk into the sand on my right before picking it up. Why didn't you catch it? Didn't feel like it, I said as I took a bite. It tasted alright, as long as I ignored the gritty sand flavor that was clinging to it. So you'd rather eat a sand-covered sandwich than be bothered to catch it? I guess so. You've been hanging around the Nara lately, haven't you? We traveled with him a bit in the Forest of Death. Why? Thought as much, he stated, not answering my own question. The plastic rustled again as I can only imagine he was making his own sandwich. Eat up, the real work starts as soon as we're done here. Hi, Ero-Senin, I said, eagerly taking another bite of my lunch. We were quiet for a while we ate, giving me plenty of time to think on what Kakashi had said about coming up with a sight substitute. I had no idea how I could do this, I didn't even know if there was a substitute for sight. I was about halfway through my lunch when an idea hit me. I had a sensei here for a reason, he had to know something that I could use or he shouldn't be a sensei. Feeling clever, I turned towards where I knew he was and asked. Hey sensei, he grunted in response. Do you think there could ever be a blind ninja? What? Where did that come from? He asked, still somehow sounding surprised when speaking around his food. Well, when I was in the forest for the exam, I thought I couldn't see and freaked out. Kakashi said that it was a genjutsu from a jealous team, so I'm alright now, but it made me curious, I said, rushing through the cover story from earlier to get to the good stuff. I mean, what if it hadn't been a genjutsu? What if I had really went blind? Would I have still been able to be a ninja? I don't know, he finally answered, after thinking on it for a few seconds. He swallowed his mouthful and continued talking. I haven't heard of one before, but, then again, I don't know everything. It's possible that a ninja existed that was blind. They would have to have their other senses be really strong or somehow come up with a way to compensate. Though, the second would be more likely unless they were blind from birth. But how would he do that? I don't know, he said around another bite of food. Echolocation maybe. Echo what? Echolocation, it's something bats use to see in the dark. They make sounds and it bounces off their surroundings back to them so they know what it looks like. Cool, I exclaimed happily. Do you think I could do the same thing with chakra? Probably, but why would you want to? He stated suspiciously, but before I could come up with an answer he did so for me. Wait, you're going against Neji in the finals. He has the Byakugan, which, if I know the Hyugas, he's going to rely on pretty heavily. You're wondering if you can create something similar to level the playing field, aren't you? Huh, oh, yeah, you caught me, I said after a moment, his reason sounding a lot better than anything I would have come up with. I thought it would really freak him out. It will be the best prank ever. Do you think it will work? It's possible. I'd imagine you'd have to really crack down on your chakra control, but I think it's doable. Sweet, I exclaimed happily, shooting to my feet. I'm going to start right now. I ran off towards the sound of water before realizing something important and having to run back. Realized you don't know how, huh? He said, clearly amused. I nodded sheepishly. You want it separate from your eye, correct? Yeah. Okay then, this is what we'll do then, Jiraiya said after a moment of thought. You're going to need a focal point. A focal point. A place on your body where you'll emit the chakra waves. It should probably be close to your eyes so your vantage point will be similar. He scratched his chin as he explained. It should probably be located on your forehead or between your eyes. But it can't be hidden by anything because it might mess with your readings. But why does that matter now? We're just working on chakra control. Yes, but while we're doing that we should get your body used to emitting chakra from that spot so it will be easier later on. I nodded in understanding. Are you going to be wearing those goggles from now on? Yes, I like them. Okay then, the focus point should probably be right there. He poked my forehead right in the half an inch between my goggles and my Hittite 8. Unless you'll be moving the forehead protector somewhere else. Nope, that will work, I answered cheerfully. How do I do this? With this, there was a bit of a rustle as he obviously held up something that I couldn't see. You have to focus your chakra and to make this leaf stick to your forehead. What, that's it? Yes, that's it, he said, obviously mocking me. Simple but effective. Iruka tried to get a bunch of us to do that when we were in the academy, I said, thinking back a bit. I thought he was crazy. Nope, he was actually giving you a good chakra control exercise. Probably shouldn't have ditched the detention then, huh? Just get to work. End chapter 10. Hope you all enjoyed this what if, and if you did then like, comment, and subscribe for more content. See you all in the next video.